Hello there. Welcome back, Vibe Code aficionados, Claude Code connoisseurs. Pete here from Code Playbook. Super casual vid on YouTube for you today. Let's get some big text because I'm getting old. I want to go through my daily vibe coding workflow. 90% in Claude Code these days. I thought this would be interesting just because I feel like I have watched a ton of YouTube videos and tried to steal sub-agent ideas and tips and tricks and Git work trees and everything. And I kind of always like revert back to what I'm about to share to you. I think I've tried to do too much in the past, and this is kind of like a easier, it's actually more of a beginner-friendly workflow for vibe coding. Maybe it's because I'm not a beginner, but alas, I'm gonna show you what I do. By the way, I'm Pete. If you are new around here, welcome. I've been vibe coding since before vibe coding was cool, about 3 years. I have built over a dozen projects. I've sold 2 SaaS companies. I have 3 more that have hit revenue and provide full-time income, and I've been doing this for a while now. And I don't have any formal training as a developer. So, flame me in the comments when and if I get things wrong, because you know it's gonna happen. So let's start with the tools. I'm a big fan of being cheap, and I'm a big fan of diversifying my tool stack for the same amount of money. I'd rather pay $100 a month for several different AI tools that I'm comfortable with, because if one goes down, I can use another. If one's having trouble, I can use another. And it turns out I actually do that quite often. So I use the $20 a month plans for Claude Code. I never, ever, ever use it in Cursor. I use it in the terminal all the time, just because I like the interface better. And I don't know, I haven't used it in a while, so it might be updated. But at the time, using Claude Code and Cursor was like outdated. You couldn't get access to all the features, whatever. I pay for ChatGPT Pro and have basically since it's come out. I will use Codex occasionally, which I'll come down at the very end here, but I mostly actually just use ChatGPT for ChatGPT. Don't use it a ton for coding, except for planning, which I'll get to as well. And then I use Cursor. I still pay for it. I stopped paying for it for a while, and then I wanted to try out the new agents. It's hard to see because my thing is green right here. The new agents interface, and I actually really like it. I like the Composer 1 model. It was a couple of weeks ago they put this out. Big fan. So I'm paying for it again. All right, here's my setup. Sub-agents, this is mostly Claude Code I'm talking about here. Sub-agents, none. I think they introduced the plan sub-agent a while back, and ever since then, I just can't seem to get anything done with sub-agents. I just don't. If you have tips for me, drop them in the comments. This is my one of my main projects here. I don't have anything in the Claude folder. I was gonna open up one just to show you. I can't remember the guy's name on YouTube. Maybe I'll find it and I'll put a link in the show notes, whatever. But somebody has this exact setup. It's all, you could go grab it. It's all on GitHub or whatnot. I basically stole a bunch of his ideas, and it's got like a bajillion forks on GitHub. It's public info. I feature research architect, code-based research specialist, as in finding files in your code base, or maybe that's this one, code discovery specialist. No, code discovery is something different. No, that's the same one. Git documentation manager, project docs maintainer. Okay, that's the ones I stole from GitHub. Claude Code just never uses them for me unless I specifically ask it to, and even then, it doesn't save me a lot of tokens. It doesn't save my limits very much. I had bad experiences with this. I just never quite, I don't know, it just seemed like the work even creating it, even though it only takes like 5-10 minutes, it just wasn't worth it. It didn't save me any tokens, and they didn't work very well. They worked occasionally, but not great. Don't need it. I don't need it. And my approach to this, spoiler alert, is lots and lots of Claude MD files and markdown context files, which I'll get to in a second. Last but not least, this one, somebody else on Reddit was just like, hey, give it the easiest prompt ever to create a sub-agent and just say like, hey, you're an expert in Flutter, you're this project. You're an expert in SvelteKit. You're an expert in Next.js, or like whatever it is, and that's it. Just let Claude Code do its thing, creating that sub-agent. That's actually the most successful sub-agent I think I've ever done. I have a Flutter Dart reviewer and a Flutter Dart expert. The prompt was literally just like, you're a Flutter expert. Boom, that's it. And those actually work pretty well. In fact, Claude Code uses them pretty well. But 9 times out of 10, I had them for this project. I tried things for this project. I've ended up deleting all of it because I don't use that anymore. Agents, none. Subagents, none. I just don't use them. Okay, MCPs. Context 7 is the only one that I use basically all the time. I'm gonna go into coding projects. Let's gadget here. I'm just gonna fire up Claude in a different thing. I'm gonna show you stuff in this Claude Code terminal right here. /MCP. I think I only have, yep. Context 7 is my like user level MCP. I sometimes use Playwright, not the real version of Playwright, but the MCP server because I'm lazy. The new Daisy UI blueprint that just came out, I think last week. I've only used it once on a different project. I don't have it on my user level yet. And I can't speak to it, but that's something I'm interested in because I use a lot of Daisy UI and TO and CSS. Firecrawl, I should. I have a license. And the Claude Code web search sucks, in my opinion. It's just terrible. I think maybe 50% of the time it will actually crawl the URL and bring back something useful. And then half the time it's just like error loading page, error fetching URL. I mean, a different problem every time. I'm just not a big fan. Firecrawl. I've used it only like months ago. I should get back to using it again because Claude Code's web search stinks right now. Okay, multiple type Claude MD files. Now we're getting to the juicy stuff. So let me skip ahead. Screw it. Let's come down here. No, I'll tell you what, we're gonna come back to this. I'm gonna show you these in a second. I have a /context folder for every project, and it's always tracked, meaning Git tracks this folder /context. There's been some debate on whether Claude Code will actually automatically read non-tracked, ignored files. I found that it does. Some people swear that it doesn't. It has for me, basically no problem. But just to be safe, I always track the context folder, and I have an archive folder that I would literally just like drag files between them before I start coding, depending on what I need. I think maybe the ignored files Claude Code won't get, which I want. I don't want it to like look at these archived context files and whatever. And more, I'm actually creating more context files in the folder, the specific like folder for a feature that I'm getting at. So Claude.md, I have my base one. I believe it should be pretty small. I'm always telling it, I put this in my notes here, I always tell it less than 300 lines of code. Like if you let it, Claude Code will literally make these Claude.md files 800 lines of code and more, and it's just way too broad. And I mean, Claude Code uses this root level Claude.md. I know it does automatically. I should even like tighten this up further, probably. But I really rely on multiple child Claude.md files for specific features. Specific folders, specific features, I'm always using these. And or a markdown file. So I have these all over the place. And I'm gonna get back to that in just a second. That is like my thing. Other people have context files, but maybe they do better with subagents or whatnot to make things happen on autopilot. Maintaining my context files is how I vibe code the best. That's it. That's my strategy. I never hit context limits almost ever for Claude Code. I more often one-shot things than don't, especially in stuff like web apps, SvelteKit or whatnot, JavaScript stuff. Flutter, Dart, maybe not so much, but that's my secret. It's not really a secret, but that's my secret. Okay, so I'll come back here. Archive folder, I got to that. Okay, so here's some workflow stuff. If anything is small, and I think it's gonna be easy for the AI, which you only learn over time, I never use Claude Code. It's not quite as speedy as Cursor. I use Cursor agent mode now. I swap over to the agent thing here. You can see some things I've done recently. I really like the review button that'll pop open the diff viewer right here. And you can like minimize these. I'm a big fan of this interface since they changed it. So small stuff, stuff where I know what files things are happening in, and I can use the @ symbol to like tag different stuff here. Anything that is gonna be like a one-time thing, like a 5-minute activity, a 10-minute activity, I don't use Claude Code. I save Claude Code tokens for the bigger things these days. Going on here, chat mode. I prefer to chat it out with Claude Code these days. I used to do more planning in ChatGPT. I still do that a little bit, skipping ahead here. If something is like really complex, or I know it's going to touch a lot of files, it's a bigger feature that I'm starting from scratch, or stuff like that. And especially if I don't understand something very well myself, like if I can't literally explain it to you, then I'll use ChatGPT Deep Research for planning. I will literally treat it like a friend, right, assistant that I'm like asking questions to, and I go lots of back and forth. And at the end of that, 100% of the time, I create either a Claude.md file or a new markdown file for context, 100% of the time, for anything remotely complicated. And I'll just show you this one because that's what I'm working on like right now. aidraft.md. Again, I tell it always under 300 lines of code. This one stinks. Actually, it was 800. ChatGPT gave me a downloadable markdown file, which is always, always, always what I ask it for. Sometimes it doesn't actually give me the downloadable file. In this case right here, it looks like the tool needed to generate that, whatever. But I basically just copied this, and then I copied this and added it in manually, and I stuck it right here, a new markdown file. And then I basically asked Claude Code to whittle it down to 300 lines of code, and it didn't, but it's a lot better than 800. I try and keep these short, I keep them tight, right? Scope, small scope, really specific things. This is a swiped file feature for my email marketing app, where my users are gonna be able to like, they can use these, but they can also like one-click generate a draft with AI, and it's not done yet. Like this doesn't do anything right here. I haven't built this yet, but I get the plan. I go back and forth in deep research mode, starting with deep research mode. I get the markdown file, and then I'll usually generate a Claude.md file, just mostly for data formatting, data structure. I don't use TypeScript, and so a lot of the way I get around not using TypeScript is keeping these context files with data structures. I'm really big on that because I just can't stand data structure problems, right? I use Firestore and Firebase and PocketBase. I've used PocketBase once. Supabase and Firebase I use like all the time. I'm big on documentation on data structure. I don't know why I felt the need to show myself more clearly to tell you that. But alas, here we are. Where did I leave off here? Give me a second. So, all right, I'm not even here yet. When I chat with anything, I use Claude Code in normal mode, except when I do a brand new feature starting from scratch, I'll usually go deep research mode. Okay, anything else? I'm just asking questions about code, I use Claude Code. 100% of the time, not 50% of the time, but 100% of the time, I check the context and config in Claude Code before I do anything, literally anything. So I haven't done anything this morning yet. Let's exit that one. Okay, so 100% of the time. Context will show you the current limits on your conversation. 32%, why is that at 32%? That seems wild. Okay, doesn't matter. Config shows you your daily and weekly limits. You can see I literally haven't done anything today, which is kind of nice. I check this every single time I do anything. If the context limit, not the config, but the context limit is over 50%, period, I close it down. Or at the very minimum, I ask it to document. I do a lot of, hey, update that markdown file, where is it? Update that Claude.md file or whatever. And then I'll start from scratch. I never go beyond that. Partially it's because I'm cheap and I don't want to pay for a more expensive plan. Second, I'm trying to keep things tight, right? I'm trying to keep context small, the scope small, that sort of stuff. All right, so planning. I've already covered a lot of this. I always compose my prompts outside of the terminal just because I hate editing text in the terminal. And Vim mode or whatever it is, I can't stand. I don't know all the shortcuts. I looked into it one time, but I don't know the shortcuts. Like if you start typing here, it usually gives you like a little note right there. Edit text in Vim or Vim, I can't remember. I never use it. I'm terrible at it. It doesn't matter. What I'll do is fire open this guy. This is Scratchpad on Mac OS. And this is just where I keep a bunch of crap. Like, and I'll delete this. I live in this little app all day long. So prompts almost always start with this for Claude Code. Let's work on my blank feature, specifically the blank. And you can see like I do this a lot. Let's work on my swipes feature, swipe file template. Specifically, I want to do this, this, and this, and this. It's a lot easier to type things out in here, a lot easier to delete entire lines or whatnot. Although I did learn, Control L on Mac, might be different on Windows, don't remember this. Control L will delete everything that is currently in your thing right here. Control L, boom, at least the entire thing. So you don't just have to like go down to the very bottom and then delete the entire prompt. I don't know. I was an idiot. I used to do that a lot, but I don't do it anymore. Control L. All right. I've already said this. When I'm planning a brand new feature, super complex, start with ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. If I understand the code, I understand what I'm building. Even if it's a large feature, then I'll usually just start in Claude Code in planning mode. I've done that a lot. And create either Claude MD or new markdown file. I've already gone through most of this. And then I clear context. So that's basically my planning in a nutshell. I hope that made sense. I hope this was useful. Drop me a fat comment if this is useful. Drop me an emoji if it's not useful. Actually, just drop me an emoji anyways. I like the engagement on YouTube. Makes me smile. Okay, implement. So I think this is what separates my context, my workflow, excuse me, from a lot of other vibe coders. I'll say this to the camera. I separate all of the planning steps before I actually have AI generate code, period. Even if I'm in Claude Code and I start on planning mode, I rarely ever just let it, okay, implement. I rarely ever do that. Instead, I like to have things well documented in these markdown and context files. So if anything screws up, I mean, it's one thing to go back and forth with the AI agents and you can fix issues that way. And I do. But if anything like really goes off the rails, I like coming back to this documentation that I already have set up, whether it's in Claude Code or ChatGPT or whatever, and never starting from scratch, right? If you go super off the rails, I don't like completely starting over. Once I like go back and forth, something's not quite working, and that context window is like 50% filled, 70% filled, I like starting over with that tight context window, and I already have the documentation files. So the planning phase for me is entirely separate. It's always ChatGPT or Claude Code or whatever. Generate the markdown file or the claude.md file, keep that tight, clear context. That's it. Clear the entire context window, start from scratch with an implementation prompt using, and then feed it like the claude.md or whatever. I do that 100% of the time. I don't know. It just seems to work better for me. I just noticed you probably can't see half of this stuff. How about this? There you go. Now you can see that. Compose prompts outside the terminal. Always do that. Never fails. 99% of the time, except for like really small changes or fixes or features or whatever, 99% of the time, I just let Claude Code go. I just start it off in auto accept. Again, I've already done the planning. I feed in the context files. I just say go, right? Testing. I am a stickler for testing everything myself, period. Like literally everything. I'm obsessive about my like logging statements. I will have like dozens and dozens for like every page, every like server file, API route. Like I don't know, I'm just obsessive over this. I feel like Claude Code does a little bit of automated testing, some more than others. I have tried using specific software to do more debugging and stuff like that. Like Tracer is one of the ones that I saw a lot of people on Reddit using. It might be bots promoting it because I didn't find it all that great. I know there's like 3 or 4 out there that are like pretty well known. I don't know, I've never had any issues testing myself. And I'm not really that starved for time either, I feel like. I'm not building the world's most complicated apps, except for my mobile app, which is indeed more complicated to test just because you have to test it on mobile and whatnot. It's more annoying. But alas, I test everything myself. I immediately, like you implemented one thing, I test it myself, period. I'm the first user of all my apps. I'll try in incognito mode. I'll try whatever, right? Log in, I'll log out, try to do something. I will test authentication. I'll test, I test everything, right? I test security rules. I try and hack my own app. I ask AI every now and then. I didn't put this on my notes here. Every now and then I'll literally like swap over to Codex sometimes. It'd be like, try and hack this, right? Or pretend you're a hacker and like figure this stuff out. Like that's my go-to like security prompts these days. But I test everything myself, period, with a ton of logging statements, a ton. I have to remind myself after I like go into production half the time to go like remove a lot of or comment out a lot of these console.logging statements because this is my go-to. I just like testing things, seeing things work myself. I want a lot of input on UX and UI, so I do all the testing myself. I don't write a whole lot of test files specifically. Claude Code does that automatically sometimes. I don't do a ton of that. Maybe I should. I don't know. And then Last step, again, I try and keep these context windows tight. I document. Something works, I usually like git commit, git push. I love to test on production. In fact, I'll give you a spoiler alert. A lot of times, there are many features on my app live in production that my users don't know about. Like I will literally not link to stuff in my app right now, in List Gadget, I think. I have the menu live. Let's go on the live site here. That's the incognito, ain't gonna work. Anyways, on my menu, I'll have like, coming soon. Well, spoiler alert, you can actually use this right now in my app. It's live. The feature is live, but I just don't tell people about it. And that just allows me to do an extra little bit of testing. I don't push crap live. Like I test it locally and whatever. I'm not a total idiot, but I like testing things on my live domain just because I always find one or two additional issues that you don't find on, localhost 17 million or whatever. Okay, let's go back to my notes here. Update docs. I usually do this before Git, actually. I should have put that in there. Update the Claude.md, update the markdown file. In fact, I'm 99% positive, whatever I did yesterday, the last thing I usually say is like, update the docs, update the docs, update the docs. Especially if I do that context thing and it's like above 50%, update the docs and then start from scratch or clear the context, if you will. That's it. Git push often because I like to test things, and there we go. One last thing I wanted to say. I already said this partially. I think the documentation files are helpful for starting over, right? You will eventually go off the rails. The AI will just completely screw up. It's not what you wanted to code. It doesn't work. You spend like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, like trying to get one feature done. Start from scratch. It's so handy to have the context files that you can start from scratch with. And oftentimes, yes, I'll just go to Codex. Codex inside of Cursor here. I don't do it a ton. Maybe like, that's actually been several days, I feel like. It's been about a week since I've used this. But it's handy when it's handy, right? Claude Code just really stinking on something, then yeah, I usually go to Codex for like those big issues. That's it. So next step is to ship features, man. So drop me comments if you have any questions, if you enjoyed hanging out. If you're brand new at vibe coding or you just want to see me build apps from scratch or whatever, go check out my other videos. I got a full playlist on vibe coding, which is totally free right here on YouTube. And that's it, man. Thanks for hanging around. Thanks for letting me do like a more casual video, and we'll see you in the next one. Adios.